body and grinding down the center.
Okay, we'll start with this. Tomorrow, France's own Olympic gold medalist, Estelle Mosley, is going to be taking on Argentina's own Yanina Lescano.
Can't lie to you, I'm a little bit in the dark here.
I went scrounging around for footage of Yanina Lascano in action, and it's safe to say there's not a fuck ton of footage out there on her.
I don't know what Estelle Mosley's up against here.
Aside from what you can see with your own two eyes and what you can read into on paper. A very statuesque lightweight of generous proportions with a professional record of 10 wins, 1 loss, with no draws.
You got like 2 knockouts?
There's more to boxing than what you see on paper, and maybe on paper you can't tell whether or not Yanina Lascano packs a heavy punch, though given that she's an Argentinian slugger, an Argentinian fighter, and the Argentinian toughness we've come to know and love.
I just get the sense that Estelle can't look past this girl.
Yanina Lascano's only ever lost 1 fight in 11 professional contests, 11 professional bouts. She's only ever lost 1 fight, and that was, 4 years ago?
To Mayra Moneo.
Mayra Moneo, who she faced for a second time more recently in 2020. Mayra Moneo, who got herself DQ'd in that second fight, that rematch for rabbit punching, and as a result, Yanina Lascano was awarded the W. Yanina Lascano, who hasn't lost a fight since 2018, and she has seen action 8 times since then. I mean, this is no Johnny woman. This ain't no fighter with an upside-down record.
She's on an 8-fight winning streak.
Generous physical dimensions, about 2 to 3 years younger than Estelle Mosley is.
Though not coming from the same decorated amateur background as Estelle.
Estelle Mosley is an Olympic gold medalist after all, though you'd never know it how low she's been flying under the radar the last couple of years. I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of Estelle Mosley in action. I've seen a lot of her career since she debuted as a professional, and she's yet to blow me away with a performance.
She don't show me the wow factor that Katie Taylor showed me against Nina Menke.
Wow factor we saw with Chantel Cameron when she locked horns with the very experienced Vivienne Aubenas.
Killed her husband, you know.
Chantel did?
No, Vivienne.
Terrible. Estelle Mosley has yet to exhibit any wow factor for me.
She's fundamentally sound, capable.
She doesn't have the fastest hands, doesn't have the fastest feet, or the most concussive punch. But a professional record of 9 wins, no losses, and no draws with 1 knockout. Estelle Mosley is solid.
Probellum is staging 2 cards this weekend, and this is one of them.
This one's going down tomorrow, on Friday, and then there's another Probellum card set to go down on Saturday, the one with Sonny Edwards and Regis Prograrius.
I gotta tell you, I don't know what Estelle's gonna be dealing with here.
I don't know what she's up against. I don't know what Yanina Lascano brings to the table because there just ain't a fuck ton of footage out there on her. Both those cards are going to be shown here in the United States by way of Fubo.
FUBO for those interested.
Also set to be in action this weekend on what is now the undercard of Cobbs versus Roca, what was originally supposed to be McKinson versus Ortiz, but Ortiz fell ill.
Case of rhabdomyolysis.
Thus, Virgil Ortiz is unable to compete this weekend. He had to pull out of that fight. They found McKinson a late replacement, but as a result of that, Blair Cobbs and Alexis Roca, their fight has been elevated to Golden Boy Promotions' main event this weekend.
On the undercard, we're going to be seeing Ramla Ali versus Shelley Barnett.
I found it a bit strange that Ramla Ali's next ring appearance is happening as part of a Golden Boy promotion show as opposed to a matchroom show. Ramla Ali is a matchroom fighter after all, and it appears that Ramla has enlisted the aid of veteran trainer Manny Robles, a solid choice.
Ramla is one of Matchroom Promotions' 3 prize stallions in today's super bantamweight division.
Reigning WBA champion Mayerling Rivas, who they have signed to a multi-fight deal. There is unbeaten up-and-comer Ellie Scottney of
coffin.
And unbeaten Ramla Ali, who's set to make her next ring appearance against seasoned Chinese woman Shelley Barnett this weekend on the undercard of Cobbs versus Roca. Ramla will attempt to advance to a professional record of 5-0, whereas Shelley Barnett, she sports a pro record of 5 wins, 6 losses with 2 draws. Chinese woman with an upside-down record who was last in action against seasoned veteran Shelley Vincent. And Shelley dropped a decision to Shelley
Barnett. She dropped the decision to Shelley Vincent.
38-year-old Shelley Barnett, who's going to be sharing the squared circle with Ramla Ali. Ramla, who has very generous dimensions for a super bantamweight, standing in at approximately 5'7", an orthodox fighter who very much looked the part her last outing late last year in November against the then unbeaten Isela Vera. Ramla Ali very much looked the part in that fight, shooting straight shots from the outside. You saw the movement, the sharpshooting, the power. I expect to see more of that this weekend against Shelley Barnett. Ramla Ali, she had a very productive 2021, having boxed 3 times last year, 3 times. Once in March, then again in May, then again later in the year in November. I expect to see Ramla at least 3 to 4 times this year.
Yeah, she's coming along nicely.
I reiterate, I find it quite strange that Ramla's next in-the-ring appearance, her 5th professional fight, is coming to us by way of a Golden Boy Promotions show as opposed to a Matchroom show. Those things in mind, should we expect to see any of Golden Boy Promotions' Valkyries like Sinicia Estrada, Sulem Urbina, Marlena Esparza?
Should we expect to see them making any appearances on Matchroom shows since Ramla's making an appearance on a Golden Boy Promotions show?
That is a legitimate question. Conservatively, Ramla Ali on points would be the way to go in this weekend's contest. That is my official pick, unless Ramla Ali goes ahead and stops Shelley Barnett, which is possible.
Keep your eyes peeled for this Saturday.
You ever think about Benavidez? Would you fight him?
I fight him for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Then why you not getting...
You
said he fight anybody. He ready.
Right. You know that.
I know, but why they not letting you fight this guy?
It's
I
not
got
like,
this guy got me calling him the Mexican monk. Everybody's scared of this guy. And I hear you saying you want to fight him.
I just think his value is low. It's not worth as much as
God damn,
fighting
man.
a fight like Canelo. I'd rather get one of the best in the world right now that got a belt.
Then why you not fighting Canelo?
Sure, I'm just waiting. We called Canelo out for 5-6 years already.
Then fight the next best guy, the Mexican monster.
Who?
Benavidez.
He ain't no Mexican monster.
Oh,
We got nothing to
everybody's
offer.
scared of him. Nobody's fighting
scared
him.
we box. We're not scared of no human on earth.
Please call these
I'm not
people out.
scared.
Listen, the whole world's looking at you. Call these people out,
What's
please.
up? It's the Jermall the Hitman Charlo. Let's get it. Who want it?
Name them names, man.
They know who they is.
Name the names,
who they
please.
is,
The
bro.
names need to be
Right, they know
named.
who they is.
The Mexican monks.
Current reigning WBC middleweight champion Jermall Charlo very recently made an appearance on Mike Tyson's Hot Boxing podcast, and that appearance is getting a lot of attention. Most are interpreting this video segment as Mike Tyson inadvertently putting Jermall Charlo on the spot and asking him the hard questions. Why isn't he fighting David Benavidez?
Who says it was inadvertent?
For all we know, Mike Tyson knew exactly what he was doing and exactly why he was doing it.
Like, see through this guy's bullshit, and it was his intention to put him on the spot.
Canelo Alvarez is spoken for at least the next 2, could be 3 fights. He could be spoken for upwards of 3 fights. And we've known that for some time now, at least 2 weeks, at least a little over 2 weeks. And in that time, Jermall Charlo...
He wants to wait in line. He doesn't want to take out the competition.
That's what he's doing. When you willfully land on Maciej Suliecki, as opposed to Carlos Adames, who's ranked in at number 2 by way of the WBC's rank standings, he's the guy that's right behind Jaime Munguia. Now, you tried to get Jaime in the ring, and that didn't work out. So why didn't Carlos Adames, a PBC fighter?
Hey, I got a question. What good is it being on the PBC side of things if you're just going to get passed over?
Think about it. Carlos Adames is a PBC fighter the same way that Jermall Charlo is a PBC fighter, but he got passed over for Maciej Suliecki. So did David Benavidez.
To some degree he did, because this has been going on for something like 2 years.
David Benavidez didn't all of a sudden start pursuing a Jermall Charlo fight. This whole situation between them has been going on since March, April of 2020. So think about that and think about the timeline. Think back to 2020. Jermall Charlo willfully fought Sergey Didivianchenko as opposed to David Benavidez.
1.
He willfully fought Juan Macias Montiel last year
2.
instead of David Benavidez, and this year they afforded
3.
Jaime Munguia that opportunity, a Golden Boy Promotions fighter.
For all those guys who lambasted Terrence Crawford for not signing to the PBC.
Do you remember those guys? And do you remember how I told you that Terrence Crawford potentially signing to the PBC wouldn't guarantee him the kind of fights that he wanted? That even being with the PBC, it's not a lock. It's not a guarantee that that'll get you the fights that you want to get. Case in point, how long has David Benavidez wanted to fight Jermall Charlo just to get passed over?
Carlos Adames is a PBC fighter, and he got passed over.
They offered to fast-track Jaime Munguia, who was supposed to be fighting Carlos Adames in a WBC final eliminator for a shot at Jermall's title. They were willing to fast-track Jaime to that world title shot, that world title opportunity. And when that didn't work out...
They didn't offer to fast-track Carlos Adames to that title shot. Carlos Adames, like Jermall Charlo, like David Benavidez, he's a PBC fighter, so I'll ask you again. What good is it being on the PBC side of things when you're just going to get passed over anyway? It's like I always told you, all that stuff about crossing over to the PBC side of things was a smokescreen.
That's what I always told you. Being on the PBC side of things don't guarantee that a fight is going to happen.
Jermall Charlo don't want to separate himself from everybody else.
He doesn't want to take out the competition so that he can thereby separate himself from everyone else and become that standout fighter that Canelo Alvarez should fight. He doesn't want to do that. And I've known this for years. The moment he turned his nose up at a Demetrius-Andre unification match, the moment he started acting squirrely after calling out David Benavidez himself.
Jermall Charlo don't want to separate himself from everybody else.
Just wants to stand online, single file, and wait. He says he doesn't see the value in a David Benavidez fight. He says his value is low, and he prefers Canelo Alvarez. And I'm pretty sure that Canelo Alvarez feels the same way about you. He don't see the value in you because whatever money's on the table is money he's bringing to the table. He don't need Jermall Charlo to get $40-50 million.
The difference is he's about to take on a naturally bigger fighter than himself.
A naturally bigger fighter than Jermall Charlo is. What's not being said is that Canelo Alvarez is not some towering mountain of muscle. Quite the opposite. He's a short, stumpy fighter. He ain't got generous physical dimensions the same way that Jermall Charlo does. So if Canelo Alvarez, short, stumpy Canelo Alvarez, is willing to try his luck at light heavyweight for a second time against a naturally bigger fighter than himself, what's Jermall's excuse?
Jermall Charlo is a longer, rangier fighter than Canelo.
He is. Short, stumpy Canelo Alvarez is willing to try his luck at 175 pounds, and you're squirrely about moving up to 168?
Bear in mind, he's the same age as Canelo.
A whole generation of fighters. Jermall Charlo hasn't fought a whole generation of fighters. This whole era of fighters, he hasn't fought. Chris Eubanks, Daniel Jacobs, Triple G, he turned down the Canelo fight. I know 100% he turned down the Canelo fight. I wouldn't lie to y'all. I know 100%. And then years later, Jermall Charlo came out and told you he ducked Canelo. Demetrius Andrade, Laura. He turned down the Laura fight, y'all. He's turned down the Laura fight at least twice that I know of. At least twice. Trust me on that. Laura used to beat him up as a kid, and he hasn't forgotten it. He doesn't want to touch Laura. I mean, it's like 10 fighters he hasn't fought. Oh, fought Jared Hurd. He hasn't fought Jared Hurd in 2 weight classes. Jared Hurd is a 160 guy now. It's like 10 fighters. How do 10 fighters duck you? He lost to Matt Coralball that night. Everybody knows it. Everybody saw. He lost that fight 115, 113. 100% he lost that fight. I believe, and that was the night Al Heyman really understood Jermall Charlo ain't that good. Jermall Charlo, your career is over. It's simple. Who you gonna fight? Canelo's never fighting you. You're not gonna fight Benavidez. You haven't. Caleb Plant's not gonna fight you. You don't add nothing to his career. Darrell might fight you. He's at the end of his career. You know, I don't know if he wants a belt or some money. I don't know what he wants. But who you gonna fight? And then they gonna start comparing you to your brother, and that's gonna eat you alive. And guess what Jermall Charlo gonna do? He just gonna salivate off of that shit. Oh yeah, I'm better than my brother.
That is Barbershop Conversations, echoing a very familiar sentiment I've expressed here on the channel many times over the years. I think the wrong Charlo brother has been in the limelight. I think the wrong Charlo brother has dominated the conversation for all this time. Where everybody's been sitting around talking about Jermall for some reason, it's Jermell who's the unified lineal and Ring Magazine champion. It's Jermell who's on the cusp of becoming an undisputed champion in the 4-belt era himself. It's Jermell, not Jermall.
How many times have you heard me say that here on this channel?
Boxing world is now beginning to see what I've been seeing this whole time. What I've been telling you
for years. And there ain't enough narratives out there by way of the YouTube grifters to fool the better portion of the boxing community. Oh, you'll still find the odd guy that's making excuses for Jermall Charlo and how he's navigating his career. That is how it's being navigated for him, since he's not the one in control, and we all know that.
You can still find the odd guy that's making excuses for Jermall.
Shading Canelo Alvarez for having not fought him, even though Jermall Charlo is irrelevant,
Nothing.
unimportant,
Basic.
You can still find the odd guy making excuses for Jermall Charlo, but that odd guy represents a contingent, a very small contingent of boxing
A
fans.
small contingent that don't represent the majority.
The majority of people, they know who the number one guy in the sport of boxing is. So does Jermall Charlo.
Who the best pound for pound in your eyes
Man,
right now?
right now, shit, we got to go with Canelo.
You think he the best pound for
I
pound?
mean, right now, we looking at pound for pound. What that mean to some
Yeah,
people? I think
truthfully.
a fighter that goes from weight division, become champion at
With
all
his
the
consistency.
Yeah, he's become champion at all the divisions, and you know, he deserve it.
Try and wrap your mind around this, where you got content creators that want to pit the fans against each other to drum up business and drum up views with their clickbait.
I'll tell you, Canelo Alvarez ain't pound for pound number one.
Shade him for having not fought Jermall Charlo, preying on the gullible, the ignorant.
Hey, listen, Jermall Charlo himself considers him pound for pound number one.
Never mind what your boxing ego and your Aki TV or your Dante's Cheeseburger Nation. Never mind what they think about it, because the guy you're propping up, Jermall Charlo himself, considers Canelo Alvarez the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport.
I told you, it was only a matter of time before all these narratives started to fall by the wayside.
This is what I've been telling you. I've been telling you this for years. There's an old saying. When you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said.
So long as you tell the truth.
How long have I been telling you that this guy, he ain't what you think he is. And it's those content creators, your Dante's Cheeseburger Nation, your Boxing Ego, your Aki TV. Those are the guys that are going to have to go over what they said in the past and explain themselves. If you think that Canelo Alvarez ain't worthy of being number one pound for pound fighter in the sport, or whatever it is, you're the one that's going to have to go back and explain why Jermall Charlo, the guy you've been propping up.
What did Aki TV say? That Canelo Alvarez is on a European tour?
Apparently, so is Jermall Charlo. He's on a European tour of his own against lesser fighters. Lesser fighters than the fighters that Canelo Alvarez has been fighting. Canelo's been fighting champions. Whereas Jermall, he fought a European, Eastern European, in Matvey Korobov, another in Sergey Didivianchenko, and he's about to fight yet another.
Another one in Mossely.
Does that bring the head count to? One Russian, one Ukrainian, and one Polish guy, but you want to criticize Canelo Alvarez for taking on unbeaten champions in their prime.
Accuse him of fighting Europeans exclusively when what he's doing is fighting champions exclusively.
Regardless of where they're from, the United Kingdom or the United States, Russia, anywhere else in the world. He's collecting belts. What's Jermall doing?
He knows who the number one guy in his sport is.
Got to go with Canelo.
You think he the best pound for
I
pound?
mean, right now, we looking at pound for pound.
No matter how many ignorant and uninformed individuals out there try to propagate these narratives against Canelo Alvarez, the fighters themselves, Jermall Charlo among them, they know what time it is, and they know who the number one guy in the sport is.
And Canelo didn't get to being the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport by being like Jermall Charlo.
No, Canelo Alvarez fought Erslandy Lara, unlike Jermall Charlo. He fought Daniel Jacobs, unlike Jermall Charlo. And he's the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport, unlike Jermall Charlo.